you're not intentional about what your children watch and you're not intentional about what they consume, you might think that you're checking the boxes and doing your job as a parent, only to find out that the larger influence, the bigger impact is coming from what they consume online. So when it comes to screen time, at least in my home, I focus on being intentional with two things. Number one, intentional about what my children watch. And number two, to be intentional about how long they're allowed to watch for. I found that many parents, they give their full trust to their children when allowing them to have screen time. So they assume that if a show is meant for children, if it's geared towards children, maybe it's animated, or if your children watch YouTube, they're watching other children play. A lot of parents innocently assume that if it's made for children, it's okay for their children. And the reality is that this is very far from the truth. Just because something is made for children doesn't mean that it's appropriate for your children. And I think the biggest issue that you hear about a lot, especially in Nigeria, is the issue of TV shows that embed things like LGBT content. But I want you to think a little bit deeper about the shows that maybe don't push the LGBT content, but they're still relaying other messages to your children that on the surface aren't very visible, but if you dig deeper, you will understand these negative messages that are coming through the screens into your homes and into your child's brain. So let me give you one that might be a little bit surprising to you. There are many TV shows, and a lot of them are geared towards very young children. I'm talking, raise your hand if your children watch like Nick Jr. or CBBS or these sort of like younger audience platforms. So there's a show on there from this innocent Nick Jr. show actually completely contradict the Islamic morals that I'm trying to teach my children. So in this show, you have an older rabbit, Ruby. She's the older sister, and she has a brother named Max. He's the younger brother. And every episode, it portrays this negative sibling relationship. So there's the older sister who is constantly bossing the brother around, telling him, do this, don't do that, come here, get that. And then you have a younger brother who's constantly scheming up plans and being very mischievous. So in one episode, for example, she spends all day baking a cake for her friend, and then the brother, when she's not looking, eats the cake. Or in another episode, the teacher gives an assignment, the girl spends all day working on the assignment, and the brother comes and like destroys the project. And this might seem innocent, and you see this theme repeated over and over in children's media, but what is it teaching your child? Ask yourself, what message is this actually relaying to my child? It's relaying this thing of competition between siblings. It's relaying this thing of controlling older sibling versus an annoying younger sibling. And this is not Islam. This is not Islam. Like in Islam, what are we taught? To hold up the ties of kinship, right? What about TV shows where there's evil villains and violence, and you see little boys jumping off of couches and trying to replicate that in the home? So for me, what do? I pre-vet the shows that my children watch. So for example, we sit down, we watch together. If I feel it's appropriate for them to continue watching, I allow them to. And they know that they're not meant to watch a new show if it's not one that mommy has approved of. This works, to be honest, maybe 80–90% of the time. If I'm traveling or if they're spending time at someone's house, you can't control for everything. But I feel that because my intention is in the right place and I'm trying my best, that I leave the rest to Allah to help me manage, inshallah. That's number one. And then number two is to lead by example. Before you leave today, just check your phone, look in the settings, and check how many hours a day are you spending on your phone. Go through your settings and look to see your average watch time per day or your average screen time per day. And you'll be shocked. You'll see numbers like 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. For those of us who work online, it's probably even more, right? So you can't tell your child to be careful with screen time, and meanwhile, as you're telling them, you're holding a phone nonstop. So my challenge for you is if you look at your phone and you see that you're spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day, try to devote 1 hour each day where you put your phone away, your child puts their screens away, and you do something interactive with your child to build that relationship away from screen time